Welcome to a Fortnight on the Isle. I'm your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and today, just like always, we're going to cover what's been going on the last couple of weeks. I can't lie, the last fortnight has felt like an entire month. It does feel like it's been forever since the last time I recorded one of these videos, but at the same time, the fact that it is almost June kind of gives me anxiety a little bit. My brain is like still stuck in March mode for whatever reason. I just feel like April didn't ever really happen for the most part, and then May has felt like it's melted away, even though, like I said, the last 2 weeks have felt like a month. It's been a really weird dichotomy, but I've been making do on a lot of what I predicted in the last video when I was talking about what I'd be getting through this month. You know, I've been very busy with real life work as of recent, as I predicted I would be, as getting back into the swing of things and really getting into the swing of things, quite frankly. And at the same time, also been pretty busy with video work, and that will continue. Not been like super busy with that, mostly just on a couple of specific projects, which we'll talk about in a later portion of this video. But between those things and, you know, formulating, getting accustomed to my new normal again at this point, getting back into writing hasn't really come up quite yet, but I'm getting there. You know, I have managed a lot this past fortnight, though, mostly in the realm of reading, so let's go ahead and start with the bi-weekly reading. You can find the gaming, cinema, and upcoming releases section via timestamps down below. But what I did get read over the last fortnight, it was a lot, trust me, a heck of a lot more than normal for me, or at least it felt like a lot more than normal, likely because of, you know, most of the things that I read were pretty short. So the first thing to talk about is the fact that I did finish The Color of Magic, which I talked about in the last video. I was like 86% of the way through last time, so I was most of the way through the book, and basically my thoughts haven't changed from last time. There's nothing really to add. I had a really fun time with it. I ultimately ended up liking, I think, part 4 alongside part 1 as the best for me, but I decided to be a little bit conservative with my rating for the book. I think of this as like a 3.5, which I rounded down to 3 for Goodreads, but I had a heck of a lot more fun than that rating would maybe lead one to believe, but I had a heck of a lot of fun finishing The Color of Magic and can't wait to continue. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The next thing that I read, and here we have 2 books in a row where my green screen is going to cut out part of the cover, I reread The Hobbit, finally. This has been on the docket, on the to-do for quite a while, actually, and I really enjoyed this reread. I was actually pretty surprised how much I forgot in the last 4.5 years since I reread it the last time. How many little things, how many little moments there were that I just did not remember being a thing in the book. And then more importantly, the fact that I did read the book after watching Peter Jackson's, you know, adaptation of the trilogy, wherever those movies are. I guess I have them right here. I have them right in front of me. After watching those movies, there were actually a few little things that were like taken as like little references from the book that were then adapted into the film in interesting ways that honestly I kind of like respect and enjoy just for the idea side of it, even though some of it wasn't necessarily explicitly on the page in the book, or some of it was explicitly off the page from a different time but was decided to be repurposed but used essentially the same way. I was just really surprised by how many of those little things there were, and in that way, both from the adaptive side and from just straight up rereading the book was a heck of a lot of fun. So that was something that I got done this fortnight. The next thing that I read this fortnight in just a few days was the 3rd book of the Bachman's book collection, i.e. Roadwork right there. A book that I went into pretty concerned, actually, because I first started reading Stephen King back in 2020, and I read Rage and The Long Walk as my first 2 Stephen King books, believe it or not. And then Roadwork was going to be the 3rd. But by the time I got to Roadwork, I was feeling a little bit of burnout, because there were a lot of years in high school where I just wasn't able to read very much without getting burnout, leastwise being able to read a lot of the same thing, and reading a lot of King at once was giving me a little bit of burnout, even though it wasn't really that much to read. In any case, I was starting to feel a little bit of burnout with Roadwork, and I actually like technically DNF'd it like 1 or maybe 2 chapters in, and I also was not into those 1 or 2 chapters that I read at the time, so I was pretty concerned going into Roadwork this time, thinking like, will I even like this, you know? And I liked it a lot. It might arguably be my favorite of the 3 Bachman books I've read so far, which is a huge surprise to me. That is the exact opposite from what I expected. It just happens to be really emotionally impactful, you know? I liken it in some ways to The Shining, in the way that, like, The Shining is an exploration of Jack Torrance from, you know, the view of somebody going crazy, whereas Roadwork is the view of a character who has, like, already partially gone crazy, and the ways in which that has occurred and the reasons for which that has happened are more or less slowly revealed or clarified or expanded upon over time throughout the book. And that particular dynamic was something that made that character's journey, the tragedy of it, just really impactful for me, I guess. There was a lot about that journey that I found really emotionally evocative and hard-hitting. I really liked Roadwork, man. It was really good fun. And then the other thing that I mainly got read over the last couple of weeks was Percy Jackson's Greek Heroes. I did actually get to this like I thought I would, or like I hoped I would, rather, and managed to read through the entire thing. And had more fun with that than I did with the Greek gods, I will say. It's not like it's like that much better per se, or that much different. It's just that I think the tone and vibe and stuff actually worked better recounting the stories of some of the heroes rather than the gods, and that worked out for me. In fact, I really liked that. A couple of those stories were actually constructed and told in a way that was surprisingly emotional, despite the Percy Jackson narrative flair going on in there. I just liked that retelling, and in fact, it was the retelling of the Greek heroes, this book here specifically, that has inspired me to want to read things like, what is the name? Edith Hamilton's mythology, and then like Ovid's Metamorphoses, for example, to get some of those myths in other tellings and other versions. Because, yeah, I thought that the heroes telling in here was really actually strangely good. And then I've also continued with theological reading. Last time I talked about how I don't think I had read any of Exodus in the previous fortnight. Well, this fortnight I finished Exodus, I read through all of Leviticus, and I'm over halfway through Numbers. So I've made a decent chunk of the Torah these last couple of weeks, and the end of Exodus and Leviticus were pretty tedious. The beginning of Numbers was also pretty tedious in different ways, but there are still some good things in there that I've appreciated. If you want more of my thoughts on that kind of stuff, I do have like brief reviews of each of those individual books on Goodreads, so you can follow me there if you would like. As for what I plan to read over the next couple of weeks, and I'm promising I'm going to try to keep this short. I know it hasn't been short so far, but I'm on a time limit. I need to start streaming in 20 minutes, so I need to get finished recording as soon as I can. Anyway, what I plan to read over the next couple weeks is actually finishing Children of God, because I did not mention in the previous little bit that I started this just this morning. I'm only 15% of the way through, but I will be finished with this by the time we come again. And following the Sparrow, the start of this has actually been really, really, really great so far. I don't even really know how to explain it, kind of the same way that I didn't really know how to explain the Sparrow in many ways. It's just the specific spiritual exploration and the existentialism of it, the thematic tone that is being conveyed here is handled super well, with so much nuance between different character perspectives, and of course with the plot that all occurred in the Sparrow and some of the developments that are being continued on here in Children of God as its sequel. It's the first 15% has already been really great, and I cannot wait to continue that, even though I bet it'll still break my heart, maybe in different ways, but yeah, it'll be a journey, but I'm looking forward to it. Another journey that I'm looking forward to as well is continuing Discworld with the Light Fantastic sequel. Sorry, I just probably slammed the mic there on accident. The Light Fantastic, the sequel to The Color of Magic, and just really looking forward to continuing with the series. I had so much fun with The Color of Magic that I anticipate I'll have similar amounts of fun, similar type of fun in The Light Fantastic, because I understand this is like actually a proper sequel to The Color of Magic, a proper sequel of sorts that the rest of the series doesn't really feature. And yeah, just getting a little bit more of Rincewind and Two Flower and stuff going on in there will be a heck of a lot of fun if those are the characters that the book follows. I presume it is, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing Discworld. That will be happening next week, because I plan to finish Children of God this week. However, depending on reading speed, I do anticipate that I'll probably have time to fit in a little bit more over the next couple weeks outside of like finishing Numbers and reading Deuteronomy, for example, because I would like to do those. The other book that I have on the docket, if I have time over the next couple of weeks before another read-along buddy read book comes up in the next fortnight, Daughter of Shrikes by A.J. Drummond, book 2 of Oathbreaker. I read the first book when it came out a couple of months ago, or a few months ago. I forget when it was, like February, I think was when we read this. Was it February? I think it was February. And so this book finally came out at the very end of April, and many of my friends in the Red Company with whom I first read the first book, you know, as that read-along back in February, have been reading this month since the book came out, and I want to hop on board. I've been getting a lot of FOMO and just been looking forward to it in general, like the very specific dark fantasy vibe and the way that the fantasy was handled in such a offhand way, and the fact that the book is short. I want to get into this before I get into my next like true epic fantasy read, so hopefully I can fit that in over the next couple of weeks, given that Children of God is not super long, it reads quick, and Light Fantastic, being Discworld, very short, and also will probably read just as quick as Color of Magic did, so I anticipate I'll have time for that. The only other thing to talk about in reading, and I know this section has been really long, but there was a lot to talk about this fortnight on the reading. This was basically the main thing that I did the last couple weeks, as I have continued the first Doomsong book, working for Christopher. The amount that I had been able to read up to last time when I talked about it was up to 55% of the first part. But Christopher has now finished writing the first part. He is currently writing the second part, so I now have access to all of the first part, and I've been continuing that over just the last couple of days at this point. And over the rest of this fortnight, I plan to basically finish part 1. So that is the other thing to update. But otherwise, that is everything to talk about on the reading. It's been a long section, I know, and I'm sorry. But let's get moving on, because again, I am on a time limit here. For the bi-weekly gaming, I do have a couple things to talk about. I don't believe I have the disc down here. I do not, but I did play, or watch, I suppose, Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, or 358 days over 2, whatever the technical pronunciation is. Josh corrected me when we recorded our little watch along of that, and I've already forgotten, so I'm sorry about that. But we did do that just last week at the time of this recording, and that was an adventure. Kingdom Hearts is always brain busting, and I honestly don't know what to say beyond that. It was certainly a trip. It was a trip, but I'm honestly looking forward to being able to play Birth by Sleep at some point, hopefully in less time than a year and a half, like it took just to get to watch that. But we did watch that together. That was a fun time for what it was, and notably, last week, I did start streaming The Last of Us Part 2, and the stream that I'm going to be starting here in like 10, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes or something like that, right after I'm done recording this video, is the second live stream playing through that game, and doing it in chronological mode specifically. So I don't know how far specifically I will be at by the end of today, but it'll probably be about halfway through day 1, Seattle day 1, not counting Dusk. If you want to count Dusk as a separate thing, which for the purposes of my recording I am. So I should be about halfway through day 1 by the end of the stream today. Might get a little bit further, we shall see. But it has been strange. We'll say the chronological mode has been a little bit more chronological than I was expecting for some reason. It makes sense, obviously, given the name, but for some reason I wasn't expecting things like all of the flashbacks being back to back to back to back, basically right at the beginning of the game, so that's been weird. But yeah, that's been an adventure, and that will be continuing. And that's obviously one of the things I'm going to be playing over the next couple of weeks, is continuing to stream that on Saturdays. I also plan this week to play through and record my Let's Play for Need for Speed Carbon, because I'm going to do a Let's Play of this and have that be the Let's Play that comes out in June, so I need to be getting that done pretty soon. Looking forward to playing that game again, one of my favorite games, and honestly, argue it's definitely one of the games I've played the most times in my life, and so that is basically the gaming plans. I, of course, still have God of War Sons of Sparta that I need to finish, but between needing to get the Let's Play done and having to do a bunch of video production for the end of the month, you know, to move into June, I know for sure I'm not going to have time for that this fortnight. So maybe in June I'll finally actually get to finish that game, but I've been trying to make the time to finish that game for over 2 months now, so we'll see what happens. As for the bi-weekly cinema, did not get anything watched over the last couple of weeks, unless you count the random basketball game for playoffs, but I did have some plans that I'm going to be watching this fortnight, or at least most likely this fortnight. Depends kind of what happens, we'll see. But the main thing is The Hobbit. I have watched the 3 films. I would like to watch some of the appendices before too long, just for the making of stuff. That's something I'm fascinated by and would like to watch a little bit. But the main thing is that both after this recording, I will be streaming some of The Last of Us Part 2, and after I'm done streaming The Last of Us Part 2, I will be editing this video. After I'm done editing this video, I plan to watch the Maple Studios / Maple Films fan edit of The Hobbit, which is like 4.5 hours long, so that'll be like my evening. We'll just be watching that, because I need to be making a video about that and the book, which I guess we should basically get into here in just a moment, but yeah, that's something that I would like to watch here very soon and plan to be doing today. If I don't get it watched this evening, it will be watched tomorrow. I basically don't have any other excuses. The only other thing planned for the to be watched stuff is that Backrooms movie, which ought to be, by all accounts, just good horror fun. It seems like the creator has been putting enough care into it, kind of like he did for the original online series he did. So I'm very curious to see what that actually turns out looking like from a film side of things. So I might go and see that opening weekend with one of my friends over in the next town over. But depending on how plans end up shaping up, it might be a little bit later than that. So it might be this fortnight, might be a little bit later. I'm not entirely sure what will go down with that. But yeah. That's basically what I have planned. Oh, the other thing I suppose I should mention is Iron Lung by Markiplier. That actually comes out on streaming this fortnight, and I plan to make a video on that since I missed the theatrical release back in January, unfortunately. I want to get back to that and actually watch that, so that'll probably get done this fortnight as well, so I suppose I should write that down here. That is everything for what I did the last couple of weeks. Let's talk about the next couple of weeks, namely the upcoming releases, all the videos that I have planned for this fortnight. It's a packed fortnight, going back once again to basically a video or something like that happening just about every single day outside of tomorrow. There will be a video every single day for the rest of the fortnight, or video or live stream, I suppose. There was going to be a video tomorrow, but I'll explain that a little bit more here soon. So, starting on Tuesday, the 26th, will be my review of The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. Since I'm going to be reading the first few Discworld books, you know, back-to-back months, basically, I would like to review each book before I get to the next one, basically. So, the book is getting reviewed this month, even though I just read it a couple weeks ago. Normally it takes a lot longer before I get to book reviews for that kind of thing. So that'll be Tuesday. On Wednesday the 27th is finally actually going to be The Ghost of Yotei, a brief review video. That was supposed to come out last Wednesday, but then I had issues with my editing software or my PC or both. I'm not entirely sure what was going on, but like it was just really struggling and not working with me when I was trying to add gameplay footage. Reasons that I cannot explain and cannot figure out, because when I tried to edit some more the next day, it was working more or less fine. So I was able to finally get that finished editing, but it took until a couple days after the actual day it was supposed to release last Wednesday, and I had decided that I would delay it a week to guarantee that I would have the time to actually get the gameplay in there, and then I decided to add some extra gameplay for a couple other titles that I discuss in that video that I have footage for that I wasn't originally planning to put in for time. It's a whole thing. The video finally comes out this Wednesday. I'm very happy with it, much happier with it than if I had just released it without gameplay footage like I was thinking I might end up doing last week. I was like, no, I'll just delay it a week and, you know, have the gameplay in there, and I'll be much happier with myself if I do. So I did that, and that comes out Wednesday. I'm very excited about it. Then this Thursday on the 28th will be another top 5 video for the book binge, but this time talking about books I hated but want to try again, which is a little bit clickbaity because most of those books I didn't actually hate, but they're books that I disliked or didn't like nearly as much as I thought I should have and want to give another shot for one reason or another. That discussion was a fun one, and I'm looking forward to a little bit of the reaction to that, especially from a couple of friends, because a couple of those books on there are some favorites of different friends. On Friday, the 29th, will be episode 9 of the Bioshock 2 Let's Play, so that'll finally be the finale of that series. You know, after a couple months now of that going on, it'll be the second episode with regards to the DLC. Had a really fun time playing the game, but I especially enjoyed the DLC the first time, and yeah, that final Let's Play episode will be coming on Friday. On Saturday, the 30th, will be the third live stream for The Last of Us Part 2, but it'll be basically Seattle Day 1 Part 2, essentially, is what that is going to be streaming of. I don't really have much else to say there. Sorry, I'm just updating a couple of my notes since I'm realizing a little bit of this was inaccurate since I first made my notes a few days ago. As for next week, we'll say on Sunday the 31st, the last day of the month, will be a little bit of a bonus episode of the book binge on my channel that's going to be in a collaboration setting with Christopher Rocchio's channel. That's a Sun Eater FAQ type of question that's going to be coming out, discussing what happened to war stories. If you know the back timelines from Disquiet Gods and Shadows Upon Time, there are different short stories and books where the timeline is like actually references what stories or books certain events come up as, and there's one particular event in the timeline that is credited to war stories, something that never came out. Next week's video answers the question of what happened to that, why it never came out, what's going to be happening with it in the future. So that's just a little bit of an update video that I wanted to put out. Like I said, it's going to be in collaboration with Christopher's channel, since that is a question that has come up as of recent in the Sun Eater Discord, fan Discord, and the subreddit. So yeah, that's what that's about. On Monday the 1st, we'll be finally reviewing, you know, the fan edit of The Hobbit and talking about that alongside my reread of The Hobbit, talking about its adaptive qualities or lack thereof, depending on who you ask. That'll be an interesting video to produce. That video was originally going to be coming out tomorrow as of this video's release, but because of the delay on the Ghost of Yote review, I ended up not having time to watch the fan edit before, you know, this weekend basically, and therefore not enough time to be able to actually produce that video for it to come out tomorrow. So it will be coming out next week instead. So, you know, there's the problem there. Then on Tuesday the 2nd will be my regular monthly reading wrap-up and TBR video talking about a lot of the stuff that I just talked about today, to be quite honest, and then predicting what I'm going to be reading in June, so a little bit more than what I just talked about today, but that'll be next Tuesday. On Wednesday the 3rd will be my next State of Affairs, so just the regular monthly wrap-up, things that are going on with the channel broadly speaking, talking about May and looking forward to June. On Thursday the 4th will be another like interesting book binge related discussion video. This one's not 100% set in stone. I have my book binge schedule for June set basically, but there are a couple of switches that I might make with some of those videos depending on what I do. It's going to be like a discussion video where I basically answer the question that I haven't necessarily gotten directly, but I've had people like accuse me of being a bad critic because I don't like the books they like. And so I'm going to do a video where I talk about whether I consider myself a critic or whether online reviewers like YouTube reviewers, booktubers, you know, people like me, whether we should even be considered critics, what the merits are for or against that argument, and then, like I said, whether I consider myself to be one. So that should be an interesting video. Like I said, it might get switched with a different idea next week, we shall see, but that is what I have planned for the moment. Next Friday on the 5th will be my next Let's Play starting. Like I said, I'm going to be recording the Need for Speed Carbon Let's Play so that it can come out in June. The first episode of that should be happening next week, I guess, on the 5th, and then on the 6th will be the 4th live stream for The Last of Us Part 2, which will probably be actually covering the end of Seattle Day 1, because Day 1 also has a few chapters at dusk, and then it'll be like bleeding into the start of Day 2, basically. So we'll see what the streams actually look like. I'm not entirely sure how much I'll get played each of these weeks, Might be that I get way further today and next week than I expect, and that next week I can, actually, start day 2 basically and just play all of day 2. I don't know. We'll see, but that's basically what I have planned for the moment. That is everything for the upcoming releases, but because I'm right up on top of when I need to be starting my live stream for The Last of Us Part 2 today, let's talk about the next couple of weeks, what I've got going into the turn of the month, and thankfully there's not that much to really talk about here coming up on the turn of the month. The content grind is absolutely real. I kind of referenced how there are a couple things that I would like to do these next couple of weeks, but no, I won't because I have too much video stuff to get caught up on. That is the truth. I've been feeling the content grind alongside real life work more severely. This month in general will definitely be a little bit more getting used to, for sure, but basically all of my plans for the next 2 weeks are pretty simply put in just a couple of points here. Get all of the videos for June done, aside from the Fortnite on the Isle update videos, basically, and obviously the live streams. And then number 2 will be survive, so that I can take a break next fortnight, because I would like to have a little bit of a break. I'm just a little bit out of it this fortnight, really exhausted in a lot of ways. Insert the Green Mile I'm tired boss gif over here. So I would like a break next fortnight. So this fortnight I'm going to be breaking my back to allow myself to have a break next time. So that's everything that I have to say today. It was a lot longer of an update than I predicted. I thought that I would have like 10 minutes before I needed to start the stream after I recorded this, and turns out I need to get that stream basically started now. So I'm gonna stop recording now. Get out of your face. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did, really, really appreciate it. For now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.